Hi, I'm Chef Yadi from Happy Healthy Latina. I'm a certified natural food chef, community nutrition educator, and food activist. I'm super excited to be partnering today with the Sanitation Foundation for this year's Food Waste Fair. That means we're tackling zero waste cooking and maximizing the use of all the foods in our kitchen and home. Now, you might not think that you're affected by food waste, but the truth is that all New York City apartments and residents are. 54% of our food waste comes from New York City residents. That means that over 68% of all the food that we're throwing out right now is edible. That's about 8.4 pounds of food a week. So we're not just talking about health wealth here, we're also talking about direct money in our pockets. So today we're going to talk about some simple tips and tricks, because when you learn how to save your food, how to cook it, and how to work with it, you can really maximize it without throwing it out. One of my favorite things to do is blend sauces and clean out my fridge and get creative with dishes. I love to do sauces because it's a great way to blend herbs, vegetables, spices, and then also use oil and vinegar as a preservation method. Knowing how to store food is one of the maximum ways that we can prolong its life. For example, for herbs, here I have an old spaghetti jar that I used and I cleaned it out because it's glass. And herbs love to be treated just like flowers, which means with water and in a jar, they last for a really long time. You can store your herbs on the kitchen top counter or in the fridge. Sometimes I like to put a little bag over it. Today, we're blending up one of my favorite Caribbean sauces, which is Sofrito. Sofrito is a Caribbean base that we use for soups, sauces, stews, and marinades. But you could also make other great sauces like pestos or peas stews. A pea stew is without the nuts. You could do a chimichurri. You could do like a green goddess salad dressing. And today we're gonna be using some cilantro and some culantro, some wide leaf cilantro. And we're gonna go ahead and use, not the rubber band, make sure you don't use any rubber bands. We're going to use all parts of the food. So not only are we going to use the leaf, but we're also going to use the stalk. So for our sofrito, we wanna go ahead and put all parts of it right into our blender. And I love to use something that we do in the restaurant world as well at home, which is called FIFO, first in and first out, which is the first thing that goes into your fridge is the first thing that comes out to use. So if you have more than one item, I like to meal prep and plan so that I don't overbuy. But if you do have more than one item, you want to be able to use the one that you bought first. So after we grab whatever herbs we have in our fridge, we're also gonna go ahead and put in some garlic. Now, as I'm cutting up my food, I'm going to see that there's pieces that are left over, like the skins of my garlic or the tops of my peppers, but I can get more use out of that as well. Don't just trash it, let's maximize its benefits. Two different things that we can do with our food scraps is we could compost it, like our friends at Full Circle have this beautiful compost bin here, which compost means that we're just helping materials to break down more so that they can go back into the earth to help us grow more food. You can then take your compost to your local farmer's market or a compost drop-off site that you can look up where there are some in your city or in your neighborhood. Or as a chef and cook, I love getting more flavor out of the skins and scraps of my food, and I like to save them in a bowl or in a bag, and then I boil them down to make veggie broth, because veggie broth is for sure not free. You could also use the same thing with animal bones and make things like chicken stock or beef stock or bone broth. It really reminds me of the way that my grandmother and great-grandmother used to cook, which is to preserve food naturally using salts, oils, and vinegars, but also to use all parts of the food. So we're gonna go ahead and use our tomatoes, and also knowing how to store our items. So things like tomatoes, garlic, and onions don't need to be stored inside of the fridge because the moisture can affect them and can affect the freshness. But sometimes you have those tomatoes in the fridge that are feeling a little soft, but you can still use them. Those are perfect for soups and for sauces and stews. A lot of times we can get confused by food because of the sell by, the use by, or the best by date. And now remember, those are just indicators. So a sell by is really so the seller knows by when they should sell or pull those from the shelves. But best by or use by are really more indicators of freshness. But you are the chef and you are the judge. So make sure to look at your food, smell your food, and be the ultimate judge. If it still looks good and still smells good, it can probably still be used. So I'm going ahead and I'm saving those scraps so that I can build that flavorful broth. And I'm using elements that are gonna bring a lot of flavor. Also knowing how to cut the food so that you can maximize using all of it. So when I'm using a pepper for a sauce, I go around the top, the circumference of the pepper, so that I'm wasting as little of the pepper as possible, and I just pull out my seed just like that. So I'm gonna save that. And then my pepper tops are also gonna go in, and half of my pepper. So I like to save the glass jars and plastic jars in my kitchen to repurpose for saving my sauces as well. And now we're gonna go ahead with some citrus. This is a sour orange, and this is a lemon. Remember, when you're cooking, I love to emphasize that your citrus, not only can you use the inside, but you can also use the outside. This has an essential oil in it, and the skin has lots and lots of flavor. So not only are we going to squeeze this, but when we wrap around and we make our frittata, we're also going to use the zest for more flavor. Using zest, using fresh herbs, and using a good finishing oil will give your leftovers an entire new life of flavor. Many times we throw out our leftovers because we feel a little fatigued from them, or we feel like they're lacking a little flavor, but all they need is a little remix. So we're putting our citrus in here, and I also think about it would be really hard for me to eat all of this if I was trying to rescue it or save it. But when I blend it, I'm using some Caribbean sweet peppers, it's easy to get a lot of use out of it. Look at all of these beautiful colors, and we're really eating the rainbow. So now that we have whatever herbs and vegetables are about to go bad in our fridge, we're gonna use a preservation method, which is by putting some salt in it. Salt and vinegar are ways by pickling and fermenting that our ancestors saved foods. So a lot of times too, when we buy things that are in season, like tomatoes are about to come up in season, it's really great to buy in abundance, and then you can can or jar them. Then later in the year, you won't need to buy any tomato sauce. So really extending the life of food. Now I'm putting a little bit of olive oil inside that will help us to blend, and really finding ways to be versatile with the foods that we use. Put some pepper. A little turmeric, and we're ready to blend. Okay. All right, let's do it. So all of those vegetables broke down into this beautiful sauce that we can use to naturally season our foods. And something that I love to do to further preserve is I like to put it inside of an ice cube tray. So you have little flavor bombs in the future. So it's a natural and preservative-free seasoning. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill that up. And then we're gonna use some of this and we're gonna do a clean out the fridge frittata. So now it's time to make our clean out the fridge frittata, which is one of my favorite end of the week meals to do for my family. I like to look around my fridge and assess what's left over and throw it in the pan for something that we can all enjoy for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Now, items you might find in my fridge are sweet plantains or black beans, and we have our sofrito that we just blended. So we're gonna go ahead and put that all together into a frittata, but you can use whatever you have in your fridge. Asparagus, broccoli, squash, jalapenos, olives, you name it, you can probably use it in a frittata. What I want you to do is really think about meal planning during your week. So think about what you might want to eat and plan to buy for that. But if you do have leftover food, blend it like we did with our sofrito, ferment it or pickle it and make it into a sauce, or figure out a way to jazz up your leftovers. So we'll put a little bit of oil in our pan and get it nice and hot. And then we're gonna use a little bit of our blended sofrito, our leftover herbs. And we wanna go ahead and let that saute. Get this nice and high. And what we're doing by putting our herbs and vegetables into a little bit of oil, it's called blooming. So it's actually a culinary term that opens up and brightens up our flavors. So it's going to take our leftovers and going to infuse it with even more flavor. We're gonna smoke paprika. I like a little bit of a smoky taste inside of my frittatas. And a frittata also moves really fast, which is what I really like. And very easy to do and put together. Take our black beans. And our sweet plantain. And if you were in here, you could already smell the garlic, the onions, the herbs, the oils, the spices, all dancing together and making those beans and plantains something new and different than what they were before. We've also reserved a little bit of our peppers. Peppers and onions and garlic are things that I see that we often have left over in our homes and fridges, and big flavor boosters. So we don't ever want to let those go bad. As you can see, we have a variety of beautiful colors here. So not only are we rescuing food, but we're eating the rainbow. Put a little bit of salt and pepper, and learn to trust yourself with food. Learn to really not just look at the label or read the label, but learn to look at food in its different states so you yourself know when food is fresh or maybe past its use by date. So once we have our beans and our plantains and our peppers sauteed, we're gonna go ahead and add our eggs. So we've beaten and we've whisked 8 eggs together here. You can scale it to the size of your family. And eggs is one of those other items that is really good for a long time past the date on the, that's on the case. So we're gonna cover that with egg. And then we're gonna add some dairy, which is some shredded cheese. And cheese should be kept in the middle or the bottom of your fridge for freshness. And then we're gonna top it off with a little bit of spinach. Now your greens don't need to be washed before you put them into the fridge. And I also like to save them by putting a little paper towel on top. When I put it into like a plastic, transfer it from plastic into like a glass case, I put a little bit of paper towel on top because that helps to absorb the moisture of the greens and helps them to last for longer. So we're gonna take this beautiful, colorful frittata that has protein, fiber, carbs in it, vegetables, it has all of it. And we're gonna put this in the oven for 5 minutes and it's gonna be set and ready to eat. So now our beautiful frittata is out of the oven. We hit that on broil for a couple of minutes and we're gonna do a couple just finishing tricks to this to elevate our leftovers. So not only have we turned it into a completely new dish that was easy to make, but now we're going to garnish it. So we're gonna hit it with a drizzle of oil, a good quality oil like an olive oil or like an avocado oil, really brings out great flavor. We're gonna put some fresh herbs on top. So again, a great way to use up any herbs that you have. You can also use dried herbs, or I grow my herbs on my window in repurposed plastic. So I only really have to cut off whatever I need at the time. Then we're gonna put a little lemon zest in it. We talked about how we can also use the outside of our lemon. It has essential oils and it has a lot of flavor. So it has really that lemon flavor is locked into that skin. So instead of having to squeeze it, the zest is gonna give us the essential oil and a lot of flavor. And then we're gonna kill it with some fresh cracked pepper. So a good oil, a citrus zest, and a dried or fresh herb will take your dish and your leftovers a really long way. That looks really delicious. Cut into our frittata right there. This lovely, lovely, lovely bite. Here. So good. No, really guys, so good. I'm gonna say this. Little Sofrito. Sabroso. We hope you had a good time with us today and that you feel inspired and informed and educated to get into your own kitchen and start making your own zero waste and no waste cooking meals. Make sure to join us for the festival and follow the Sanitation Foundation on Instagram, on social media, and on their website to get more information on happenings around the city and how you can contribute in your city towards a zero waste lifestyle.